Ryan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we never throw anything away, because this week we watched The Sontaran Experiment.
Written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin.
Directed by Rodney Bennett.
And aired in February and March of 1975. That 2-episode serial that I've been looking forward to for like half a year.
And then you regretted looking forward to it because it was just kind of mediocre.
Yeah, pretty much.
Feels like it was just shoved in there to serve as filler between Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks.
Well, at least we got the cool reappearance of the Sontarans. And by cool, I mean mediocre.
Yeah, I think I was counting this is the 7th villain we've had reoccur, because we had the Daleks, the Monk, the Cybermen, the Great Intelligence / the Yeti, the Monster, and the Autons.
Really? It's only 7?
And then the Ice Warriors.
Okay,
I didn't
yeah,
count
the Ice Warriors.
So 8.
It's only been 8?
Unless you want to count the Peladonians.
They're not really villains. Even though Hepesh and what's-his-name are pretty much the exact same character. But anyway, that's not the point here. The point is that episode 1 felt drawn out and just nothing happened in it, surprisingly enough.
And then episode 2 was the exact opposite.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder why they couldn't have just spread it out a little bit better.
I think because they wanted the reveal of the Sontaran at the end of episode 1, but that also doesn't make sense because the serial is titled The Sontaran Experiment.
Yeah, this is another serial that probably would have benefited from retaining its production name, which I think was The Destructors, which I don't even see how that plays into the plot at all, but I mean, it would have kept the reappearance of the Sontaran, Sontaran, a secret.
There's a second one.
But they're played by the same
person in the same costume.
Doing the exact same voice.
The clones!
He could have differentiated it a little.
Clones!
He could have tried to...
The clones!
So what?
They're supposed to be exactly the same!
Well, what's-his-name wasn't the same as Lynx, but anyway, this serial picks up right from where the last one left off.
Ark in Space.
Yeah. With the Doctor, Harry, and Sarah team-hatting their way down to Earth.
Yes. Earth of the future. 16,000 or whatever, right?
Yeah, which is exactly the same as undeveloped Earth of the past, unsurprisingly. They wind up in London, except it's not London anymore because
it's a rolling countryside of brown plants.
This is the first serial ever filmed entirely outdoors, so no indoor scenes and no sets.
And strangely enough, for a completely outdoor serial, was filmed entirely on videotape rather than film, which is what was usually used for outdoor scenes.
Yeah, I think I read they had some interesting recording setup for this serial. I didn't really look too much into it, but also, interestingly enough, for the first fully outdoor serial, it wasn't set in a rock quarry.
Well, I mean, rock quarry Earth has been overdone, and Philip Hinchcliffe probably wanted to distance himself from the Barry Letts, Terrence Dick's default rock quarry setting.
Or they just drove out to some random part of the countryside and said, "Looks good enough to me."
The Doctor's busy working, and he politely tells Sarah Jane and Harry Sullivan to bugger off while he's working.
Yeah.
And all the problems start because they split up again, harkening back to the era of Hartnell and Troughton to a lesser extent.
Yep.
What happens? Sarah Jane goes off.
Not much happens in one,
with
really.
Harry Sullivan. Harry falls in a pit. And
they all
Sarah's
fall in pits at multiple different points in this serial, but Harry's kind of the first victim here, I think.
Should have called it the Pit.
The Pit is the real villain of this serial. Nothing would have happened without this pit.
Sarah Jane makes the comment like, "Oh, the pit was intentionally covered, Harry," and Harry's all, "Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed it if it had..." "Oh, I see what you're saying, Sarah Jane." She's like, yeah, it must have been a trap or something. I'll go get the doctor and we'll get you out. Don't worry, I'll be right back. Of course, meanwhile, the doctor's been fiddling with the T-Mat focuses and has been captured by some people.
Right, some astronaut-looking guys.
All of whom have South African accents, I might add. Also, the leader of the astronauts happens to be the guy who wrote the Space Museum, so he just returned to the show after nearly 10 years to act rather than write.
His acting wasn't too bad. His name was Verrill, I think, his character's name.
I think his name was Glyn Jones. I think that was Glyn. Fairly certain it was Glyn Jones. No, it was Donald Douglas.
Verrill, right? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, Verrill. V-U-R-A-L. Except he wasn't the one who wrote... It was Krantz who wrote... Glyn Jones was the one who wrote Space Museum and then acted as Krantz in the serial.
I see.
So they've captured the Doctor, and, I mean, they're suspicious of him because Earth is supposed to be deserted, and they're only there because they heard a distress beacon, so they're wondering who this Doctor dude is.
Right, I was a little confused here. They kind of elaborated on it. They kind of elaborate on it in episode 2, though not too much. Were these supposed to be like some sort of not lost colony, but just the people who didn't make it onto the Ark and they had to survive somehow and they spent years in space?
I think they said they were a military expedition.
Kind of makes sense. I mean, it doesn't really play into what happens too much.
They also don't believe that Nova exists. It's apparently a myth that Nova ever existed.
Right.
But by the end of the serial, they all just accept it.
Yeah, well, except Viral. Well,
he dies.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't accept it. Because he's too dead to accept it.
He's too dead to accept it. Like, you can be in a state of death and acceptance of that fact.
Anyway, episode 1 plods on with more fillerish scenes of Harry being stuck down in the pit and Sarah running around this grassy field looking for the Doctor and spying a robot sentry thing.
Yeah, she eventually runs into someone. She runs into.
I didn't know his name.
Roth or Zake? One of the two that dies.
One of them.
The 3 that dies, I guess, if you include Verl. Or the 3 that were named who died, plus then the one unnamed guy who died. Yeah, she runs into someone who's clearly off his rocker, so to speak, and is spewing in unintelligible things.
Right, Sarah deduces that he's been tortured, which is why he's gone crazy, and it turns out, we find out eventually that he was part of the same crew from before, which you would probably guess from his first appearance since he's wearing the same outfit. But yeah, they come across the crew, the 3 guys, and Roth, was it? He just kind of bolts and...
Yeah, I think it was Roth. Yeah, it was Roth. Roth bolts, and the 3 spacemen holding the Doctor chase after him, and Sarah runs up and cuts the Doctor's cords, and they make a break for it.
Right, and Sarah informs the Doctor that Harry is down the pit.
So the Doctor's like, okay, Sarah, I'm going down into the pit, because at this point Harry has actually found a back way out of the pit and is basically bailed on the pit. He's like, nope, I'm not having this pit.
Which, I don't know, I'd do the same, but at the same time, you probably should have stayed put based on...
Yeah, considering Sarah told him she was going to get help and was coming back.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to just sit there and do nothing for a while. Especially when you find another exit.
Especially when you're Harry Sullivan. So far, he's 2 for 2 on causing lots of issues for the Doctor and Sarah Jane. Yeah, he's batting 100.
Well, I think they all cause issues for each other, especially in this serial.
Anyway, the Doctor's like, well, I'm going to go down into the pit to see where Harry went, and he trips and falls and gets knocked unconscious at the bottom of the pit. And Sarah gets captured by the robot.
Yeah, the robot sentry that's just hovering around the area.
Yeah, Roth comes back, and him and Sarah both get captured by the robot, and they get taken to...
a ship.
See the leader. Who
turns out to be a Sontaran.
But it's not Lynx.
But Sarah says it's Lynx.
Right, because they're supposed to be identical because they're clones.
But they're not.
Because they made a new costume for this cereal.
Even though they planned on reusing the other one.
Yeah, and then they ended up making a new one anyway.
So
that's how money saving works.
So the new Sontaran costume actually looks worse than the first one, in my opinion.
I think the head looks better, in my opinion, but I think like the body is just lower quality.
Well, the mask definitely was. I mean, the mask was only there for like 3 seconds before he took it off, but it was noticeably lower in effort than the other one. And you know, his name. Steyer's skin is sort of like...
It's a darker shade than Lynx's was.
No, it's not. It's
sure
like...
it is.
No, it's like beige, and Lynx's was like maroon, almost. And Steyer doesn't have the scars that Lynx appeared to have, which makes sense because they're different people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it looked more like a mask rather than, you know, a full mask rather than like prosthetic stuff. But overall, it's essentially the same thing. And I guess they just retcon that Lynx looks exactly the same as Steyer because Sarah mentions that he does, and so does he. So
it's played by the same guy who played Lynx, and part of actually the reason why they made a new costume is because the old one aggravated the actor's heart condition and kind of sped it up. He ended up passing away, I think, 2 months after this aired.
Yeah, he died pretty soon afterwards. So he also played the other Sontaran in this serial, the Marshal or whatever.
Field Marshal.
Yeah. So he's played all the Sontarans so far.
Which makes sense. I mean,
he was in a position to.
All the Daleks are voiced by the same person each serial. I mean, not same person from serial to serial, but the same person within the serial.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
And Nick Briggs just does all the Dalek voices now.
Hey, gotta save on that budget somehow. Gotta use that invisible force field.
Hey, Nicholas Briggs does the Dalek voices, he does the Cybermen voices, and he's executive producer of audio dramas for Big Finish.
Gotta save on budget somehow. Anyway, that's the cliffhanger to episode 1, and also, unsurprisingly, no, not unexpectedly, no, unsurprisingly, where episode 2 picks up.
They could have just picked it up like 3 hours later. Sarah could have been tortured by Steyer. What's his name?
That
could
only
have been
happens
dead.
later. That also only happens later.
Harry Sullivan has been I think he's been watching Sarah Jane. The reason I say I think he's been watching Sarah Jane is because then in the immediate next scene he goes around, "Hey Sarah, are you there, old girl?" Even though I had assumed he had just seen she was tied up talking to Steyer.
I don't know. I mean, Harry was just a kind of a doof in this serial.
He's been a doof for his entire run. I mean, not that that's bad. It plays well with the Fourth Doctor's character, but still.
Who's also kind of a goofball, but yeah, Sarah gets captured and Roth is killed immediately.
Yeah, apparently he's not needed anymore by Steyer. He tries to make a run for it and Steyer kills him.
Right, and Sarah asks Steyer why he did that, and he says, well, I've already experimented on him, so he's no use to me. But now I can experiment on you, so he does that. He ties her up and uses some sort of illusion generator to make her think that a snake is nearby, and I don't know, was it just me, or did she not even seem to care about the snake? She just kind of looked at it and went, oh.
I think she cared more about the rocks she thought were going to fall on her.
Yeah, probably. There was another illusion, too. I forget what it was. There was a snake, the rocks, and something else. But it doesn't matter because the Doctor shows up with the sonic screwdriver and destroys the illusion machine.
Yeah, the sonic screwdriver is pulling like quadruple duty this serial. Because all of my notes for the serial are either things the sonic screwdriver did, or the one note that wasn't something it did was sonic screwdriver wasn't very clear in this serial, because all of my notes have question marks on them.
No, it did multiple things in this serial. You were right.
Yeah, it was fixing something, melting a thing, disabling a robot? Like, those are my notes.
Yeah, well, it was only 2 episodes.
Yeah, and it was used more in this than, like, any other serial previously.
Yeah. Well, come to think of it, what other serials have Bob Baker and Dave Martin written? The Mutants,
The Three Doctors.
and what was it?
Did
There's
they
something before
write
Mutants.
Claws of Axos?
Claws of Axos. And I don't remember it being featured very prominently, or at least very ridiculously, in any of those.
I think it was used briefly in The Three Doctors, wasn't it?
For something or the other. But not to the extent that it is here.
That might just be Hinchcliffe and Holmes trying to make their mark on this show. I guess. I mean, that's not exactly the right term, but what I mean is it's probably Hinchcliffe and Holmes' involvement.
Well, it was used in ridiculous situations before this, so...
It's becoming more prominent. I mean, it was pretty prominent in Ark in Space, too.
And Sea Devils.
Ish.
Well, that was a while ago, so... I guess they're starting to use it even more than they were before, so there we go. Apparently, I'm just going to have to wait until the reboot to see where this really starts becoming an issue. But
they do lay down one rule in the reboot. It doesn't do wood, and that's like the only rule it's got. So the Doctor gets shot in the back by Lynx as he's running away.
Steyer.
The clones! It's the Clone Wars! The Doctor gets shot in the back by Steyer. Harry Sullivan... Sarah Jane has been knocked out. I think in the process of disabling the device, I think it knocked Sarah Jane out. So Harry Sullivan has showed up, and he thinks Sarah Jane is dead, and he also thinks the Doctor is dead. But then the Doctor comes around.
Right, Harry tries to approach Sarah, and then... Ian Marter, I think is the actor. Yeah, Ian Marter does this poor job of miming an invisible force field that's somehow keeping him out.
He doesn't have much to work with, let's be honest.
Yeah, he doesn't, and it's not really a prominent thing in this serial, so whatever.
Right, the Doctor comes around. Harry Sullivan's about to try and hit Harry Sullivan's found another astronaut and has learned from him that Steyer is experimenting on the astronauts.
Right, this astronaut is tied up and on the verge of death. So, he dies not long after. So
he's on the edge of destruction.
God. Well, that was another 2-episode serial. So
why I made that reference. So Harry Sullivan's gonna quote unquote knock Steyer out, but he doesn't know about the only weakness that the Sontarans have, which is that exhaust port on the back of their neck.
Right. The Doctor comes around and stops him.
And then says the most humorous line of the serial. Harry asks how he survived. He's like, had this piece of a lock from Nova just in my pocket.
Right.
And Harry's like, why'd you have that? And he's like, never throw anything away, Harry. And then he immediately just proceeds to throw the lock away. Because then he's like, where's my 500-year diary? Never clutter your pockets, Harry.
Right, a little humorous interjection here.
I guess that's what the Fourth Doctor is going to be known for, is humorous interjections into times of darkness.
Better than the Third Doctor.
The Third Doctor was just always serious. He had a few moments. Of course, they eventually group up with Sarah again, because she is free from the force field. And now they're all happy, but then they're like, wait, but Steyer... because Steyer captures the rest of the astronauts.
Right, and we find out that Viral has betrayed the other two by trying to make a deal with Steyer to let him go if he gave him information. I wasn't really explained what he...
Well, he had that camera on his chest at the beginning, too. That the Doctor was like, what is that? That's not human.
Huh. I completely forgot about that. Probably because I watched episode 1 like a week ago, but...
I watched them back to back, so...
Yeah, so... Apparently he was spying on them or whatever, and the other two just turned to Vero and they're like, oh, what the heck, man? But they still try and save him in a little bit.
It doesn't
when
work.
He becomes Giles Corey, no.
Well, I mean, he does. I mean, this is the next scene. He's sitting there and...
laying there, really.
Yeah, the other two are holding this beam. Steyer's like, you're holding a gravity bar. I'm going to increase its weight to 400 pounds. Now 600.
And they, the other two still managed to keep it up over Viral, who's begging them to save him. I would just be like, yeah, you betrayed us, so I'm just gonna... No, I wouldn't do that. Or would I?
I mean, like, even if the two people holding the gravity bar, if one of them just didn't want to save Viral, he could have just dropped it and been like...
Yeah, pretty much.
Although I think their hands were tied to the bar, so I think he would have had to go down with the bar, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense because I was kind of wondering while watching this why they didn't just move the bar out of the way and drop it. I mean, Steyer didn't seem ready to take any action. He was kind of standing a little ways off with the remote.
Right. Through all this, Steyer has been contacting the field marshal and telling him progress, and also informing him that there's some strange people there that shouldn't be there.
Right, because the whole reason why they wanted to experiment on humans, and the whole reason why Steyer sent the fake distress beacon out to lure them to Earth was because they want to kill all the humans, because apparently Earth is now of strategic importance to their ongoing war with whoever they're fighting. The Rootans. Yes.
I think... From things I've read, the Rutan Sontaran War is hinted at a lot throughout all of the Sontaran's appearances, but then never really expanded upon. A lot of people are upset about that because it's an interesting backstory type thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe it actually works better like this instead of having some sort of concrete serial
Possibly.
That's about it.
I think expanded universe, it's implied or even explicitly stated that the Rutans are also a clone species, so they're kind of locked in a deadlock war.
So it really is the Clone Wars.
Where they're constantly building new clones and just fighting each other throughout history.
Yeah.
There was a proposed storyline for later, for during the Sixth Doctor's run that was called The First Sontarans. It would have been about... It's basically Genesis of the Daleks for the Sontarans, I guess. So I hope Genesis of the Daleks is going to be about the start of the Daleks.
Or it's just some random word they decided to throw on, like the other Dalek serials. Well, the past ones vaguely made sense.
Right. But yeah, that story exists as an audio drama if anyone was curious, I guess. But anyway, they're going to basically use all their strategic knowledge from this experiment on this planet to invade all human holdings basically everywhere in the universe.
And they sent one man to do it.
Well, 1 man versus 5 isn't that bad odds if you're just conducting experiments.
It's really not, and the Sontarans are super military-minded, and actually they're solely military-minded, so I guess they only thought they would need one person.
And they really did only need one person until the Doctor showed up.
Yeah, if the Doctor hadn't showed up, they would have succeeded.
Convenient. The Doctor's plan is to basically just challenge Steyer to the death battle until Steyer gets tired, goes to his ship to recharge, have Harry remove some vital component for the ship, and basically have it kill Steyer.
Yeah, and that's basically what they did.
Yeah,
plan worked.
While that's going on, Sarah Jane rescues the guys.
Yeah, but Viral dies.
Fighting Steyer.
There you go. That's the last 10 minutes of the second episode right there.
Right, Harry Sullivan is now on the kill count.
And the Doctor increases to 3. He's
consistent.
1 person per serial. I think we made a joke about that in Robot, and it's happened.
We are only 3 serials in, though, so anything can still change. But he is consistent.
Right. Steyer looks like he almost dissolves.
He basically collapses in like a balloon.
Yeah, and then deflates.
And then the colonists are like, thanks for saving us, Doctor. Too
bad Viral died. No.
They're like, we'll just wait here for Nova to beam down instead of beaming up there. We'll be fine. The Doctor's like, okay, well, we're going to beam up. Peace out, guys. Beam out. End.
But then the Doctor comes back for a funny quip, which I'm blanking on.
Well, he says something like, you might want to stand back. You can never know with these things. And then he comes back and is like, or can you? Or something like that.
Yeah, something or the other.
Beams away, and that's the end of this 2-episode
serial. I don't know. Episode 2 was content-filled enough.
Yeah.
It might have just been one of those things they did a lot in the first and second Doctor's run where it really couldn't have been 1 episode, so they kind of just had to have it be 2.
I think Robert Holmes really dislikes 6-episode serials, which is good because we do too, because most of them end up being terrible by the end. But at the same time, I don't know if this is really any better. If With the Ark in Space feels just like a 6-episode serial, to be honest.
Not really. I mean, this is a clearly defined, separate problem, which warrants another serial. Otherwise, it would have just been like last 10 minutes of Monster of Peladon, where they just completely introduced this other thing out of the blue.
Well, I mean, it follows like the formula that most 6-episode serials did, was like resolve most of the plot by like 3/4 of the way through, and then introduce more plot threads to resolve.
I think this was actually. Oh, you're talking about if this is actually followed on. Okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But at least they didn't go for that, because we don't like it that much. But
yeah,
you know, there's not really any more 2-episode serials for another 15 years. So
no,
I think
there's one in the 5th Doctor's run. It's called Black Orchid. I think actually it also happens to be the first historical serial since the Highlanders. So we have that to look forward to. And then 3-episode serials during the 7th Doctor's run, for sure.
Yeah, and luckily we're moving more towards just consistently 4-episode serials
Which
all
is where
around.
it should stay.
Because 4, I think we can agree, is probably the best length.
Yeah. There's been rare instances where they pulled off longer, I mean, like the War Games, like the Invasion.
Yeah.
But it's not, I wouldn't say it's consistent enough that they should keep doing 6-episode serials.
No, definitely not.
Maybe next week we'll change our mind, though I doubt it.
Other than that, you know, the Sontarans came back, and they're pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not super edge of my seat to see them again, but, you know, when they come back, hopefully they delve more into who they are as a species.
Right. We've only seen 3 Sontarans.
Yeah, and one of them was on screen for all of 15 seconds, so the Marshal.
Yeah.
Literally on screen because, you know, he was contacted through the video phone or whatever it was.
Yeah. I mean, unlike other villains, we didn't get a serial where it was like whole legions of the villain and the Doctor has to stop them. No, it's like one person with a very specific plan that if the Doctor didn't show up, it would have succeeded.
And it might work better like that, to be honest. You know, we haven't seen multiple Sontarans at the same time yet, so we can't really make that call, but maybe we will someday. Maybe we won't.
We will during the reboot.
Okay, we will.
They weren't the main villains of that episode. The one I'm thinking of, at least.
Maybe the Doctor will work with the Sontarans at some point. Maybe a larger enemy will appear, and they'll have to join forces reluctantly. I don't know. Seems like something that might happen.
That sounds like something you would do with the Daleks, to be honest. It could almost be more interesting with the Daleks.
It could. And I'm gonna predict that does happen, and I don't know. But let's just say that it does now.
Just make a completely unfounded statement that it does.
Yep.
Great. That's all I have to say about this.
The music was good. It was it continued on. Hopefully this is a trend for the entire 4th Doctor's run and for the entire rest of the show, that the music is this level of quality, because last serial was great and so was this serial's tracks. So were the serial's tracks. And that's all I really have to say here.
That's all I got. I tried to talk about the serial, but it's only 2 episodes. That brings us to the end of the episode.
We should probably announce that thing that's happening in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so for a couple weeks, we've been emailing back and forth with another podcast. Not Fly Through the Entirety this time, although we have been emailing them for something else, which is not ready to be announced yet. But we have been emailing the Krynoid Podcast, and we finally have something set in stone that we can officially announce. 2 weeks from now, on our Revenge of the Cybermen episode, they will be joining us to talk about that
Revenge
serial.
of the Cybermen.
And also just, I guess, Doctor Who in general.
Yeah. So,
look forward to that. The side effect of them being on that episode is that it will go out late, mainly because editing times and, figuring out... We're recording it later than we usually do because we have to coordinate times with them because they're on another continent than us.
Yep.
So that'll go out late, but rest assured it will go out.
Yeah, so look forward to that. We're looking forward to that.
Right. If you want to find them, I'll drop links to all of this stuff in the description, but they're on Twitter, Facebook, and they have a website. So you can find them at all of those. Check out the description for links to those. And email us, thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, anger, and stuff that is. If you have comments about Sontarans,
if you want to just spoil what happens with them for us,
that would be really annoying.
Yeah,
it would suck.
Don't do that.
Please don't do that. Check us out on YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. Check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor. And leave a rating if you liked the show, or if you didn't, just leave a rating, please.
Check us out on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Check us out also on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. And next week we watch Genesis of the Daleks. But until then, the end.